Hi guys, welcome back to Threading Glue Designs. My name is Stephanie, and today I'm going to walk through how I made this folio. And it was made using two legal size manila envelopes, not envelopes, file folders. It has a metal embellishments on the outside, and the inside is velcroed shut here and here. When you open it up, there are multiple compartments. The first one is over here, and it just ties like that. You open the two flaps and there is a little stack of paper. For me, that is going to be for prayer requests. For you, it could be anything you want it to be. I used a couple of little brads to hold them together. And this section here, I have not put anything on it yet, but you could feel free to do whatever you want to there. If you want photos or images, put those there. I am going to use this for Bible journaling. The paper that I've used in it is a linen bamboo paper, and it has two signatures. And in the back, I have nothing behind it. Easily could be used for anything else you want it to be. At this point, I don't have plans for it, um, but who knows what the future will hold. Then over here on the far side, I have a waterfall, and it's the armor of God for me. Could be anything you want. You open it up, it is velcroed closed, and inside each flap, I have the name of the piece of armor and a brief description of what that piece of armor does. That's something that's kind of hard for me to keep in my mind a lot of times, so I wanted a constant reminder. So I just did a flap for each piece of the armor. You can do this for anything you want, have as many flaps as you would like, and it just simply folds back closed there. When you close it up, close that over and fold it in and back closed. And the back is just like this. The spine is stitched with a waxed cord. You could use waxed thread. You could use anything you want to for that. And on the end of the ties of the cord, I have beaded some rusty kind of beads and a cross. And you can't really tell, but on the cross is a picture of Jesus. Um, but that is the folio that Katie and I made, and I've had some requests for actually doing a full, I guess, tutorial on how I did it that has actual measurements and that kind of thing. So I'm going to do that for you today, and we'll just get started. We're going to need two legal size center tab manila file folders. I'll show you. Okay, sorry about that. I had a phone call. And so I have this file folder, manila file folder, and it has a center tab. Okay, and the center tab is the important part. You want that in the middle. So all I have done thus far is I've taken my paper trimmer and cut the bottom open so that I end up with two pieces. This piece that has the dip in, we're going to use for parts. So put that aside, and the piece with the center tab is the piece that we want first. We're going to measure our distance, and the distance is for the two folds here and here. So from the edge to the first fold, it is 3.5 inches. So you want to score 3.5 inches from the end. So let's do that real quick. And my scoreboard is a lot smaller than most probably, but um, it'll suffice for what I need to do. So I'm going to take it and flip it so that I have it here, and I can do the 3.5 mark. Now mine doesn't go to the end. that's okay. It scored enough for what I needed it to score. So we're going to flip that back over. That's our first fold there, okay? And we want, I believe these are 1 inch wide sections, but let me double check. Yes, 1 inch wide. So we're going to put this back on there where the fold hits the edge. Nope, not wrong. Flip it over backwards. The fold hits the 3.5 mark, and we're going to go to the 4.5 mark and score right there. That's going to give us our 1 inch spine edge. And so then we'll fold that up. It is a little backwards when I do it that way. Yours won't be if you have a normal size scoreboard. Or you can just use a ruler and a stylus. That would work too. So for the other side, I'm going to check my measurements there. It will be at 7.5 and 8.5. And my board does not go that high, so I will get a stylus real quick and be right. Okay, so I'm going to measure in, and 7.5 is not right. I had to add to that. So basically, that means that I added that flap, and I can see the join there in the top. So let's retake our measurement, and it's going to be, looks like 3 3/16. There's 3, and there's 3/16 there. And then we're going to do 1 inch over from there, so that's going to be 5 3/16. That's going to be wrong. The reason I know that's going to be wrong, I'm double checking myself, is because the uh, code there, what is that thing? The tab would put it off centered. So we're going to do this a little bit different. This is the way that I measured it the first time. I know that's not ideal for everyone, but for me it worked. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'll get the measurement for you. Okay, so we're going to go according to this. That is basically 4.5 or 4 9/16. So we need 1 inch over from that line in order to be centered, for not centered, but in order to have our 1 inch spine. So I'm going to measure that in a couple of places because I want to make sure that I get that lined up. Forgive Honey, she's in the background and she heard Remy bark. Okay. Now, what I need to do here is line up the dots, and you'll see those there. I'll take my stylus and gently push in. If you push too hard, you will go right through your folder. You don't want to do that. Okay, so there's our other fold. If it's not enough for you, go back over it, but it's better to go back over it than it is to go through it. So there is our base, our main base. We have all of the sections laid out there. So I did add a fold out here, and so we'll need to get the extra piece that we had, and the size of the fold out, actually get the one that you didn't have the half of because you want it to be the full width. And you want to line them up and take your measurement from where you were before. Be a little bit inside of that because you don't want it to be in the fold. And you're going to cut that straight down, and I'll be right back with you. Okay, so the next step we're going to do real quick before we get onto that flap is we're going to line up our file folder and take off this little jotted edge. That'll just make it look a lot neater and be a lot easier to get the edges done right. So we're going to do both sides. So that was one. Let's do this other side here. There we go. Those are off there. So next, the piece that we're going to need a piece that is cut off from the extra file folder, the one that was fully in half. And you're going to line it up, make sure that it is the same, a little bit smaller width than what is actually there for it to fold over. And since we just cut that little bit off, I'm going to need to cut mine just a little bit. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. Just enough to kind of smidge off the edge there. Which is good because it kind of lets me cut off that little jotted section anyway. And make sure I've got the size right. And I probably need to go just a little bitty bit more because I want it to fall within that guideline. Okay. And that is correct. Okay. So the actual size that I ended up with, let me tell you that. It is 3 3/16 inch wide by the length of the folded over manila file folder. You'll see my join there from the original file folder. Okay, that's what the original would look like when you cut it off. I opened it up and lined it up here to make sure that I was inside that section. So I actually could probably extend it a little bit more. So let me do that real quick, just so that we have it more exact for you. Just a little bit. There we go. And you can score these. I'm just folding just because I can and it's right there, but no other good reason. I am going to fold the bottom one is folded up at 4 7/16, and that top one is folded down at 4 11/16. So there you have that. Now we need some way to attach it, right? Because we've got it right here to attach to the side. And I cut out a 1 inch wide strip of the file folder. Doesn't matter which one you cut it off of, just cut it off. And I will put this, actually I'm going to redo it because it's not quite as long as I want. I want it to be the exact length of the file folder. So let's redo that together. Here is this piece, and if I do it by that, it's going to be wrong. It's going to be short. So let's see what if I do it by this. Still going to be short. So I'm going to need to do it from side to side in order to get it right. So let's cut off that extra piece on the edging. You can cut it off or you can use the one that is, why don't we do that? We'll use the one that is already folded still, and then we can cut down. So that way, all we have to do is go to the 1 inch mark. I've got this thing so backwards. Let me flip it around. That's so much easier. Okay, to our 1-inch mark here and lined up all the way. We're going to cut through that, and there we have our 1-inch piece. Now we're not done with that 1-inch piece because we need it to be just the size of our paper. So open it up and line it up from one end to the other and make a mark. That's where you're going to, actually mine's going to be at that first fold, that first little piece of that they had there. That's where mine is. So just cut that off. And don't get rid of your pieces. You'll use them for other stuff later. So now we want to score this at 1/2. So we'll bring our scoreboard back out and lay this down and line up at 1/2 and go all the way down as far as you can. Flip it around and do the other side. If yours is a big one, you won't have to do this flipping around thing, but mine's not, so I do. Okay. So now we want to fold that in half, right? And we want to ink this before we attach it. So get your ink out. I'm using Vintage Photo. And just ink it all over. Okay. Now you want to take your glue, and I'm using Barely Art glue. You can use whatever you'd like. And I'm putting the glue on one side of it. And then I will attach the base first. So I'm going to make sure that we line up and fall right into that spot and press it down. Okay. You want to double check to make sure that your fold is going to fold over easy, and it does. So then you're going to take your other piece and you're going to glue lined up right there on that. So go ahead and glue your little tab here that you've made, your join. And with your fold over open, line it up. Make sure it's exactly even. You want to leave just a little bitty bit of space in between them because, well, you want to have it fold over easy, right? And remember that that's not the only part that has to fold over. When you close them up, it will have to fold over. So mine is a little bit tight. I'm doing this while the glue is still wet so that it will loosen up and allow me a little bit of room. So I'm okay with that. And smishing that down, making sure it's good and down. Okay. So for our section over here on the far side, we are going to need some small pieces. I am going to do the same number of them that I did before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 foldovers, and I'm going to do them 3.5. Yes, 3.5 by 4. So make 6 of those, and we'll be right back. Okay, once you get your 6 pieces cut that are 3.5 by 4, you're going to put the 4-inch side long ways in your scorer. You're going to score it at 1/2 inch. So you're going to go all the way down on each one of those. When you've done that, then you can go ahead and fold over each one. And these are going to be the pieces for our waterfall. Really, really an easy folio, guys. You guys are going to get this just no problem. There's all of our pieces. Okay, so I move the scoreboard and bring back our base. Here's our base. Now we need all of these pieces to fit in here evenly. So, and actually, it looks like this may be a little bit narrower than my last one for some reason. It is, it is. It needs to be 3 1/8. So I'll need to cut a little bit more off of mine. I don't think on my last one I cut the uh, bumped edges off, but that's okay. Let me get my trimmer and I will trim these to 3 1/8 and be right back with you. Okay. I'm not sure why my lighting just went really dark in here, but we'll carry on. Um, these are all cut to 3 1/8 inch wide by 4. So we know we want one at the top, so we'll go ahead and glue that one in. Make sure when you glue these in on that folded flap there that you line them up straight so that when you go to cover them, you'll be lined up. Okay, so I know right there is the top of mine. I'm going to fold that down right into it. Actually, I'm going to scoot it out to the edge so I have a little bit of room on the inside. And that will be straight for that one. Okay, I'm going to go and do my next one. But first, I'm going to lay them out. I want to make sure that I'm spacing them to where they look nice. I do not have a special measurement between them. I just space them to look nice. You can measure them if you want to. I do not. I don't see the need in it. I just kind of eyeball it and make sure that they look nice when they line up, that they're about the same distance from each other. And I have one too many. That's okay. I'd rather have one too many than one short. Okay. And this bottom one will slide right in there. You can't go any further than the bottom, so make sure you keep it up above that. And spread them out to where they look good. Okay, I think that's not bad at all right there. So I'm just going to flip the top one up, put my glue on this flap, and fold it over. You'll get glue on your finger. It's okay. It washes off. And paper towels are good for that. There's the first one. Open it up. Wipe down any excess glue. That way it doesn't stick to itself. And you've got your first one in there. So our next one is about right there. So I'm going to fold that up. Fold it under. Making sure that I'm straight with the outside edge. Okay. I'm going to put our next one in there. I'm going to fold a couple of those down so I can line it up the way I want it. And I think that's fine right there. Fold out my tab. Lined up. And we got 2 more to go. So we're going to put this one in there. This bottom one has to go on the edge of the bottom, so just line it up and fold it under and glue. Open it and smush it down. Make sure all your glue is there and sticking good. Okay, guys, that is our waterfall on there. So our next step is to make the band that holds this together. So remember those pieces that we had earlier? I said don't lose them, don't get rid of them. This is the time we need them. So let's take a look at our prototype. And this is, I'd say 8 inches long by 2 inches wide. So let's do that. I'm going to cut off that little divot spot. Got to pull out this little thing for this now. I'm not sure what's going on with the lighting because I have light on everywhere and it was just really bright in here. So let me check and see if my auto, no, brightness, there we go. Okay, I think that would be better. We're going to 8 inches. Put our end in that we want to keep. There, line it up, and make our 8-inch cut. Now we're going to make our 2-inch cut. So we're going to line it up with the 2-inch line and cut down it. Really easy. Now one thing that I did do on the other one is I rounded the corners on the outside here. So we'll do that, and I used a large rounding edge. So I'm going to stick that in there and round both of those edges. And we're going to get our scoreboard back, and we need to score at 1/2 of an inch on the opposite end. So put that in there and do our 1/2 of an inch score. There we go. So this is ready to be glued to our project. Now let's look at this. Did I glue this before? I glued it to the back so that when I covered it, it covered it. Okay. So we're going to open it up and put a little glue on this inside bottom section. And try to center it in that fold. And I like to kind of lay mine over to make sure I'm kind of centering. And that works good for me. So squish it down there. And I'm going to close it over so I can get that excess glue off of there and press. Also going to check the inside, make sure I don't have glue oozing out in there. And that will be our flap to hold that closed. So now we're at the point where we need to ink everything. So you want to ink all of the edges of everything in here. And do that, and we'll come back together and keep going. Okay, after inking everything that you have for your folio, I do ink inside and out of all of the folds. I just like that look. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I do. Especially on these parts because we are going to be just using a strip of paper in there with a little bit of the border showing, so you will want that a little grungy. Like a little spot right there needs a little more. Okay, so you want to pick out 3 sheets of 12 by 12 paper. I've chosen these 3. These 2 are the same, and this one is different. This one is going to be the outside of all of my flaps. This is going to be everything else. When I get down to doing the outer outside, I may still change and do something else too. I don't know. But this is what we're going to start with. So the way that I do this, you can do it any way you want to, but this is my preferred method. I just line it up where there's just like a little bit on the outer edge, and then I fold it over to the next fold a little bit inside of it, making sure everything is lined up. And you want it a little bit up from your bottom. So then right in there is where I need to cut mine. So that's what I'll cut first. I'll pull my cutter out and fix my little dilly there. Okay, so I'm going to make this first cut, lining it up. Okay, and check and make sure I've got the right piece in my hand, and I do. And so I want that piece is going to fall about right there. And I want this to hit right below the top edge. So I'm going to fold that there and cut that off. Okay, and because this is a directional paper, you want to make sure that your paper is going in the right direction when you cut it for where you would like it. Just a side note. Okay, so this part hits just right. We've got these 2 corners to contend with. The way that I did it on the last one is I just glued this whole piece down and cut those edges off at the top when I got there. It was fine, no problem. So I'm going to do that the same. And just put a little glue all the way around the outer edge and a little in the middle. Doesn't take a whole lot, you just want it to stick down good. Okay, flip it over and make sure you've got the right side up that you need. Make sure you line it up before you lay it down. And that is about right. Okay. If you can still fold it on both sides, you did good. That's the goal, right? Okay. So flip it over and see those little corners? You're just going to cut those out. I just used some little tiny scissors and make a nice little rounding in there. Okay. This little part was the hardest to me of the whole thing. That, if that tells you anything, it was, there we go. Looks like I need to take off a little bitty point on each one of these. And that's just me being picky. But you do you. If you don't care, leave it. Okay. I'm gonna take my ink and just, because I don't want those white edges, I'm just going to kind of touch the edges. You can do that before you put the paper on. I just knew I was going to have to cut that, so for the rest of them, we will do it that way. Okay, so our next piece, we know these are 1 inches, so we need these about 3/4 of an inch wide. So, and we need 2 of those. So let's put that in there. And I really want without the butterfly because I like the butterfly to be in a bigger section. So this is 1 inch. That should be 3/4, but let's double check. And it is. So we're good to cut there. Line up on our paper. Oh yeah, we're going to need 1 more of those. So let's cut that. Double checking. That's not quite it. I've got it a little bit big. Okay, my ruler says it should be about right there. So we're lined up. And we're going to cut all the way down. There. Okay, so we've got our 2 pieces. Now we need to do the length of them. And again, for me, I just pick the best look of the paper, go to the top of it, fold it to that little edge right underneath the top of it, and cut that off. It's really that simple. You can measure if you want to, but there's really not a point in measuring those when it's that easy. Okay, and once I do that, I'm going to take my corner rounder. I'm going to use the medium slot, slide it in, and corner round all 4 corners of each of these. Okay, now I'm going to take my ink and ink all my edges so I don't have any white edges. All right, we've got 1 of them down and 1 more to go. So let's do that one more time. We've got that lined up and we want it to be about right there. So we're going to cut that little tab off there. And round our corners, medium round. There we go. And ink this one up. Once we've got this done, we'll be ready for gluing them down. Your choice of glue doesn't really matter as long as it sticks. I think the first one I used a lot of glue stick on. This one I'm just using the Barely glue. So it really does not matter. The inking always adds such a nice touch, doesn't it? Wow. These papers that I'm using is from a paper pad by DCWV called Preserved Papers, if you're curious. All right, so let's flip it over and do our glue so we can stick it down. Make sure you get towards the edges because that's where you want it to stick down. You don't want it to flop up. There's one. Flip it over. Make sure your writing or directional print is in the same direction it should be. And line it up. Smoosh it down. Wipe off any excess glue you might have. And that's our first one on there. Let's put this one down. This is kind of more of a cardstock paper pad. You can use a regular paper pad, one-sided if you wanted to, but I just think the cardstock, it has a nicer feel. It kind of sturdies up the parts of it, and yeah, that's my reasoning and choice. Okay. All right, we've got that one on there. It's looking great, isn't it, guys? Look how pretty that is. Okay. So next, we're going to do this piece here, and we're going to need to see how wide it needs to be. From one side to the other, I'm looking about 3 1/8, and we're using that same paper. And about right there is where I need it. And next, we're going to size it up for the inside of that. And I want to keep the butterfly on there, so I'm pulling it from the bottom. We're going to cut that off. There we go. And I am going to round the corners again. Just my preference. You do you. I will be using a large rounder. I prefer the large rounder to the other ones, but some of the pieces, if they're small, I go down just so that it looks more proportionate. Jen's going to be so proud that I actually have a butterfly in this. I love this old writing. So pretty. Okay. So flip it over, put your glue. Same thing we just did. Okay. Check your direction. Make sure it's upright. And line it up where you want it. And stick it down. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So next we have the option. Do we want to put paper behind this? Because we're going to have our paper pad there. But because there's a crease here, I am. You don't have to. It's just my preference. So let's see how wide I need that. And I'm going to need it about 3 inches wide. So let's move that out of the way. Stick that back in there. And line this up. We're going to use this as stability for in there. That's the reason that I'm going ahead and doing it, even though it's going to be covered. I want the extra stabilizing effect. There we go. We're going to cut that off. I will round the corners just because that's what I've done on all of it. You don't have to. It's not going to really be seen unless you use up that paper and want to replace it. Ink all of my edges again. This would be a great idea if you wanted to have a quick sketchbook on the go or any kind of little notebook. It would be really nice for. Not that hard to make. It just takes a little time for all the distressing. And resize that. That's right. So we're going to glue that in. Okay, writing directional in the right position. There we go. Okay, now we have the question of the inside of these flaps, and they will be showing, so I will be covering them. You do you, you don't have to, but I will be. And that one fits just perfect there like that, so I'm going to just cut these little corners with a medium and ink it. Okay, now we're going to put this on there, make sure your direction is right. And I know my words are sideways, but the butterfly is upright. So I'm going to leave it like that because I want her to be really pretty there. Okay, now the top one, when we do it, we want to make sure that when we open it, the words are correct. So that one's a little too short for that. We need to, oh, there's another little piece in there. What size is it? Oh, so close. Not enough. Okay, so we need another 3-inch wide piece. And I'll just stick it in here. There we go. And to measure, you know what we're going to do. We're going to put it there just a little bit off the bottom, a little bit on the sides, and a little bit down from the top. Yep. And we're going to round those corners just like we did everything else. Okay. Medium round. Okay. Glue on this thing. This is a really pretty paper pad. It's a good cross between grungy and glam. So if you like that kind of thing, this might be one you want to look up. I don't know if it's still being printed because some of my papers I've had for quite some time. And whoop, there we go. Okay, rounded and on there. So when we open it, that's what we're going to see. Very nice. Now we need to work on the flaps. And the inside of the flaps, I'm going to decide after we do the outside, because if I have enough of this paper, I'll do the inside. If I don't, I'll use a different paper for the inside. So we got 3-inch wide section we know of, because that's what's on that left-hand side. All right. There's that piece. Cut that off. Just double check my folds in the line. That's the one. And then we need to do this one. And check its fold right there. The back side of this paper is gorgeous as well, but the reason that I am using this side instead of the back side is because I wanted something to kind of neutralize or kind of stabilize the print. When there's too many prints, it gets overwhelming, so keep that in mind. I'm using a large punch side. And ink it up. That's just going to get rid of those white edges for us. I hate to cover up that pretty writing, but it must be done. It must be done. Okay. All right. Now we can do our bottom one. Same thing, large punch. And ink those edges. And glue. Okay, very nice. Now we'll let that dry before we go on and put our little circles on there. But for the circles, I think it would be really cute if we did them out of this. And what I did is I took a circle punch and I cut out 2 circles out of the manila file folder. So I'm going to cut 2 circles out of this and glue them together. Be right back. Okay, so now what we're going to do is you're going to set those little circles aside while they're drying with their glue, and go ahead and cut out your pieces to go on each one of the waterfall flaps. Mine were a size 3 by 3 1/8, and I rounded all of my corners with a medium rounder and went ahead and inked the white edges so we could move on. So we're going to start here. Man, I love that print. If it wasn't so busy already, we'd be using that print. So because our side we're using is non-directional, you're good to just put it on there, straighten it up, make sure that it is lined up good. And I have a little bit of a spot where I need a little more ink, a little grunge on it. Just grunge it on over there. It's all good. Okay, flip it up and you're going to do your next flip. Go ahead and we're going to glue all of the flips down, and then we'll go back and we'll do the insides. But we're just doing the outside of the flips right now. There we go. Be right back with you when I've got those complete. Okay, so I'm back and I have taken and put that flap on each piece of this, and that's just the outside piece that hasn't covered the inside piece. I did go ahead and put a seventh piece down right here. In the last one, I fully covered them both, but I think it would look better to do them separate so it has the outer edge around it. Um, just a personal opinion, but I will still cover all of the other part when we get there. So for right now, what we've got, we need to put a piece of this on here. And I think I'm going to use this side just because I like it. Um, and I didn't have enough of this paper in long enough length to do the outer side too. So I'm just going to ink this up real quick. First we need to do our little corners, and we're going to do those on medium because it's a narrow piece. Alright, now we're going to ink these edges up real good. Make them nice and grungy and dirty looking. I guess I shouldn't say dirty, I should say old, right? It's just going to look old. Okay, so we're going to cap our ink again and glue this piece down. Now we're putting this piece down and it's smaller because we're going to have the Velcro at this top edge, so we need to leave room for that. You could go ahead and put this all the way down if you wanted to. I just don't. I just don't see the need in it. But that's personal preference, and you can do whatever you choose. And this is directional, so the way that I would look at this when I open it is the way that I'm going to put the paper in there. So we're going to put it there, position it, and smush it in place. Okay, so now we're going to put the piece on this outer edge. And I've gone ahead and cut that. It's about 2 inches wide, so it's about 2 3/4 in order to get the outer edge ring for it. So going to use that medium rounder again. I didn't get that one very good. There we go. And do I want to do the rounding on the bottom? Of course I do. Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? Okay. Now we're going to ink all of that up. Go. Looking good. Looking good. Okay. So I'm going to size it up where I want it, and that's going to be right. If you'll notice that I'm leaving edge at the top and the sides, but not at the bottom. I just want that to go all the way as close to the bottom as I can get it. Again, personal preference, you do you. Okay. Very nice. Very, very nice. All right. Now we need to cover the inside of this. And I have quite a bit of this paper here left, so I'm probably going to just use it, just because I have it. No other good reason. So I am still going to leave a little bit on each of the sides and the top, but the bottom I'm going to go as fairly close to the next one. Okay, so mark that there and here and cut that one. I do want to cut each one of these individually because remember we didn't measure between each one. So if you measured, you're free to be able to do them all up at once, but I didn't. So I am going to go this way. I'm not sure where I made my mark yet. I can't hardly see it. I know I made one. Let's try that again. See where it goes. Ah, there it is. There it is. Okay. So this is going to be our first piece, and it will just fit right like that. I will not be rounding these corners on this side just because I want it to kind of fit snugly around the edge because it's going to cover most of our joins. But I will ink each one. So you'll want to do all of your remaining pieces down the waterfall. I guess I could round the top corners and leave the bottom corners unrounded. Let's try that and see what it looks like. Around those up there. Yeah, I think so. I think with the large rounder just on those top two edges. I think that'll look really nice. And it does. It looks great. Okay, so you're going to have to notice that you're going to need this to fold, right? So you want to get that fold, that crease in there before you glue it. So I hold mine in spot and fold over where I get it kind of close, and then I straighten it up, make sure it still fits fine, and it does, and then it's ready to glue on there. Okay, so be sure that you do that to each one of the waterfall folds. I will do that and come back, and then we'll move on to our next spot, our next piece of this puzzle. All right, see you in a few. Okay, guys, welcome back. And I have gone ahead and I have covered the inside of all of my flaps. And now what I need to do is I need to put that Velcro on both pieces so that it will hold tight. Now, the reason you do this after you've done all of the inside is because it's going to need to sit and dry before you can open it again. So I'm just going to use some Fabri-Tac glue and take a piece of this Velcro, and it's just a regular Velcro, sew on, glue on, whatever you want to use. And I'm going to put it right here. You can't see that. I'm going to put it on right here and glue it there in the middle. So do that with me and be sure you get plenty of Fabri-Tac around all the edges because there is going to be some pulling and wear on this. Just paper, but it's still nice to have it solidly glued down. Okay, so take that piece, flip it over, and put it right where you want it. And that's good for me. And then I'm going to take my glue, stick it on that other side of that Velcro that is still attached to it, and make sure you get plenty of glue and all your edges are covered. Now what you want to do is you want to fold it up where you want it, and you will let it stay there until it fully dries. Once it's fully dry, it will be good to open and close as you wish, but until then, And if your paper is a little thick like mine, you can use a couple of little clips, which is what I'm going to grab real quick. I've got these little sewing clips and they hold stuff really well. So I'll just clip the side of that together so that kind of keeps it held down. And it really only needs the one, so I will keep it like that. And next, what we want to do is we want to flip it over and we're going to cover our outside edges. Um, for this, I've pulled out some more paper. I pulled out these pages from a metals book that I have, and I'm going to use those. You use whatever matches your set. I just didn't have enough of my pieces of the other paper left to do it with that. Um, Actually, before we do that, I want to go ahead and let's put our little circle dots on the side here with our brads. And so let me get the brads out and some thread. And I like this waxed cord, so I'm going to use it. You use whatever you have. And I'm using these brads by Tim Holtz. They're mini fasteners. They're a little bit too small for me, but I've got them, so I need to be using them. But you use whatever size brad you have. This is just happens to be what I have. And I'm going to take two out. That's all I need is two. And put those back up. Now we're going to take this and lay them where we want them. And I think that looks good to me. Kind of eyeball them like that. Oh, I should have done this before I covered that inside. You all do that, don't do me. So, yep, I'm going to have to do it. Poke a hole through. Just a little bitty one. You don't need a very big one. Put your brad in the middle. Go to the other side and open those brads up. If I had thought ahead of time, this would be behind this paper. And it still may end up being, I may have to just go on and put another piece of paper here because I don't like it showing. So that's probably what I will do. And line these up best you can. Do your hole in the second one. Remember, it's not a very big one because it's a little bitty brad. You just want to measure it by the size of your brad. And I'm going to stick this one through the first piece, and there's my little hole for the back. It's a little bit fiddly. I don't know if y'all think of stuff that way, but it's a little fiddly. It takes a little bit of maneuvering when the hole is so little. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to open that brad up on the back. And what I'm going to do, actually that doesn't look too bad, so I probably will leave it on mine just because it doesn't look that bad. I will make sure there's not any white paper showing there. Take my little stuff there. What I would normally do, what I did on the other one, is I put a piece of tape over the opening of the brad on both pieces. And then I covered it with the paper afterwards. That would be the smarter route, but this still works. So I'm going to take one end of this and put it behind the top one. And I'm going to tie it in a little knot. And that kind of helps raise that up some so that it's easier to get stuff in behind it. I do it 2 times, and then I will cut off the extra thread that's hanging out over here. Being careful not to cut my circle. Alright, and then I'm going to go around in a figure 8 just a couple of times, just so we know it's holding on there. And I will cut it off down here. I like a little tail, you may not. That's okay either way. And now we are ready to flip over and do our covering for the back side. So to do the backside covering, you're going to do it exactly the same as what we did before, where you take the edges and you round them, or you can leave them straight. And looks like I left them straight, and I do like that look on the outside, so I will do that. I will leave them straight and just cut them to fit right inside the edges. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet you back here in just a moment. Okay, I have got all of the outside covered and the inside is covered, so I need to make my signatures. What I have done is I have taken, um, this is bamboo laid paper, and it's a really nice quality paper, so any paper that you want to use for your signatures is fine. I have gone ahead and checked my sizing that I need because my spine is going to be right here. So I need to make sure my paper falls inside that inside line. So I folded each of my two signatures that way, and I'm going to cut that edge off. Then they will be ready to go in there. It's a really easy process to do it that way. I don't like it to see any of the extra papers folding over, and this may be a little bit much for this cutter to handle, but we'll do it in sections. It'll be okay. And round two. Okay. I need to open up a little bit. I've got marks where my cut needs to be, but the paper on this side of the cutter is a little bit too thick. So I'm going to open it up just a little bit and line it up where that cut needs to be and go ahead and finish that cutout for this set. And I will do the exact same thing for the other one, and I'll be right with you. Okay, I've got these papers cut and ready to go in. Now what we need to do is we need a place for two signatures on this line. So I am just eyeballing it. You can measure if you prefer, but eyeballing is my preferred method. So I'm going to put the first one a little bit in, and I'm going to make a mark where I want that to be. And it's about half of an inch in, um, and then as close to the middle as you can get, and then about a half of an inch in from the bottom as well. Okay, and so we're going to line that up there, and I'm going to do a line across the whole thing. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I can line up both of them on the same line. That wasn't very straight, was it? Okay, and this one the same way. And no one's going to see that. It will be behind your actual signatures. So no worries about that. Okay, and on my signature, you'll notice that by doing that with the lines there, it gave me also the lines that I need to make my holes. I'm going to line the second signature up with it and mark them the same. That way you know they'll be even. And we are ready to poke some holes. So you'll need an awl or some sharp, sturdy stick with a point. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the inside of this paper and flatten it out. I'm going to punch my middle hole first and just pokes right through. I need mine to be fairly large because my cord is fairly large. You may not need yours as large of holes as mine is, and that's fine. And you want to punch it right in the crease. So there's one punched. And let's punch this other one. Right in the crease. And same thing on this end. Now we've got those holes punched for our signatures. We need holes in our back here. So we've already made our mark of where they should go. I'm going to eyeball it and section them off so that it goes the same distance. And actually, if we had made our line on the outside, it probably would look nicer from the outside because this way you're going to see some paper pushing there. It's okay, we can ink it and your threads are going to go over it, but just a thought, if you're concerned about that, you want to be sure and punch from the outside. Or maybe go back to the outside when you're done here and do your other holes. Okay. And do the holes again, I mean. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? Okay, so I'm going to flip mine over, and you see my little holes. We're going to push those back in. And once they're pushed in, you can push your all back through it. It doesn't seem to really help a whole lot. It does a little, but up to you if you do that or not. I'm going to throw some ink on top of the whiteness of it and let it be good. These are handmade after all. You don't have to fiddle too much. If you have a hole punch that will reach in and do your holes, by all means do a mini hole punch there. It would look great. Okay, we're going to need to sew in our first signature. Let me grab a needle for that and see what we come up with. I need a long needle and pointy, but it has to be a big enough eye that my thread can go through it. So I'm going to choose this one. This is the needle that I'm using. It has a nice eye and a nice point. And we are going to, you'll need to take whatever thread you're using to use, and you want to do it 3 times the distance, give or take a little bit of extra. It's better to have more than to not have enough. So that's enough for my first one. And we're going to need to thread this in the eye of the needle. So put that in there, pull it through a little bit. And you don't tie a knot on the end, you hold on to that, okay? So put your needle through the middle and find your middle hole on the outer edge over here. And you're going to pull this thread all the way through until you have a tail left hanging here. And hold on to that tail while you're doing this. It'll make it easier for you. Go into the upper hole. Make sure you go right through. Pull your thread through. And don't let it pull that all the way through, okay? So put your needle in the bottom hole and through the back hole. And you're going to flip it over and you're going to pull it on out of there. Oh, it's trying to be a little stuck on me now. It's okay, you just kind of wiggle it and work it through till it does what you need it to do. And you'll see that I've got that pulled tight. Now I'm going to go back through that middle hole, and it needs to go back through the paper. So check it out and make sure you're getting it in there. And I want the needle to be on the opposite side of the thread. And that way we can pull it nice and tight and it will hold up. And sometimes you have to fiddle with it, and that's okay. You just fiddle just till you get it to where you need it, tight like you want it. Okay. Tighten it up. you want to tie a knot here. I'll tie it 2 times. And then you'll want to cut your threads equal, or if you don't want them equal, they don't have to be. And then you're ready to do your next one. Uh-oh, I put it in the wrong hole. You see what I did? So I need to cut that out and redo it. You got to make sure you're in the right hole or it won't line up. Don't do like I did. Okay. Take 2, pull those strings out, and get new string. 1, 2, 3. That's plenty. Thread your needle. All right. And go at it again. You're going to do the same thing to both signatures, and I'll meet you right back. Okay, guys, once you've sewn both sets of signatures in, you'll notice that your pages are kind of stiff and they don't really want to fold over very good. So what I do is I take my bone folder and I go down the edge of it, pushing, and this helps it to lay down. It helps the paper to lay down and to be much more workable. So I do that front and back of both of them. I've already done the front of that one, and there's the back of that one. And you'll see I've left some string here at the bottom. I like to put beads on the end of mine. You can put whatever you choose on the end of yours. And this right here, what I did on the other one, let me show you. I put more paper in there, and the reason I did that is so that I could have it as like a prayer register kind of people that I'm praying for, you know, things that I'm praying for. Just a kind of a spot. You can use it for whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be paper there. You can change it up and make it whatever you'd like. So I'm not going to go through that because that's pretty self-explanatory how to do that. And then we do need to put our final closure on. So you'll know we're using Velcro. So to get that right, we want to lay our pieces together. Make sure that we've got them nice and stiff where we need it and not stiff otherwise. And let me go ahead and tie that back up there. Okay, and keep those strings out of the way. And we've got that folded over. So when we fold this over, that is where we need for our Velcro to be. Okay, so it looks like we've got about 1.5 inches, maybe 1.75 inches of overlap. So I'm going to take my little piece of Velcro. I want it to be on the inside here. And this is just the easiest way I know to do it without having to actually measure out everything. I'm going to take my Fabri-Tac again and glue it very liberally. You want a lot of glue there. And I'm going to stick it about where I think the middle is. And both pieces are stuck down there, okay? So then we're going to do just like we did before with the other side, and we're going to put glue, Fabri-Tac, all over this side of it. And then make sure when you line them up that this is standing straight up. It's not laying down. You don't want it to be kind of a lopsided thing there. And you're going to fold this over and where they meet, and you're going to press them together. Okay? Now that you've got them kind of pressed together, you want to put something kind of heavy on it to kind of hold it. Nothing really, really major heavy, but just a little bit. And the only thing we have left to do are the embellishments. And I'm going to pull those out. I chose to use some metal pieces that I had gotten from Amazon. The reason I did this is because I wanted them to be flat. I didn't want anything bulky on this side. And that's not holding down real good. So I'm going to take the one side off. Now that we have where the glue is at, stick that down, and we're going to stick this one down over here where we know the glue is supposed to be. That works the same. Okay, so now we're going to work on our pieces. Now, this has many pieces in it. I don't know if I have enough of those corners left. I'll have to dig in here and see. We have lots of options. Let's see, where are some corners? We have this piece, would be kind of nice for a middle section on the other side. We do have these that we could kind of cut this end off if we wanted that, which I really like that size better. So that's a possibility. Lots and lots of ideas and things to do in here. We have this piece, which would be an interesting piece. And we have lots of these pieces, which would be kind of a cool piece. But if I use this, I would want it to like hang over, half over in the front, and I don't like that. I like the way it looks, but I don't like the way it would function. So we wouldn't do that. Come on, little book corners. I hope we have them, because I do sure like them on the other one. And you need the kind that like this that are flat for the book corners, because they're going to go out here, and you can't really use the ones that you actually mush together. You know what I mean? And it's looking like I may not have enough. Looks like I have one. It's kind of weird to have an odd number like that. I don't know why. We've got a couple of these. I wonder what they would look like if we cut them in half and did half here. Or if now we don't want them to bend, because it'd be really cool if we cut them in three. Put a piece on the front and the spine. Let me get some pliers and see if that will work. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So what I did is I went and I took that piece and I cut it where I cut the middle section out. See, it was this whole middle section. And so now I have some corners for my book. So to put adhere it, you're just going to use that Fabri-Tac, and you're going to just be sure and get it on the metal. You don't want Fabri-Tac oozing because it would be glossy. So just kind of be aware of that. And I want mine lined up with where my paper edge is. I don't want to go all the way to the edge, because I like that paper edge that we created. So there's our first one down. Put another one over here. You can't really see what I'm doing there, could you? Just putting glue on it. That's it. And we're going to put this one here. Okay, we've got two more to put on here, so we're going to flip around, and we should be okay to close that now. There we go. And we can put these on the other corners. This is going to give it a nice embellishment, but keeping it nice and flat so that while you're working in the journal, it lays down really well. You want to kind of line it up where it's across from the other one, still inside that paper like we discussed. And do that with all of them. Then we'll pick out an embellishment for the middle now that we've got that closed. Okay, glue on that. And it went right up into that corner, so that's what we're going to do with this one. Right there. Okay, we'll let that dry. Now, we can take this little ring off and put this in here. We can put it either overlapping or it's kind of off-centered because of the way that the book is. We can put it where it overlaps, but I don't know that I really like that very much. So we'll see what else we've got. We do have the piece from the middle there, which is all right, but I don't really like the size of it. We have some chandeliers. This is the piece that I used on the other one, and I really liked it. It's not bad. It's definitely an option. You could turn it this way. I think I like it this way better. Um, I really think that may be it. I really like the way that's laying there. I'll show this option as well, but um, there's just, I don't know. I mean, I could do it like that and it would look fine. I don't know. Just something about this other one that looks right to me. So we're going to do that. So you're going to glue it with Fabri-Tac just like you did the last one. And when I did the beads on the other one, I just matched them to the beads to the paper that was in the project as far as the outer paper. So that's what I'll do again with this one, just if you were curious. And now you just have to let those sit and dry. Put your beads on and a little bit of scrap paper in that one section, and you will have your folio done. Guys, this has been a really fun project. I've gotten two of these done. I will be listing this one on Etsy if anyone's interested. Um, yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this and you're able to follow along. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye.